Great, we can get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Tina Lucani. I'm Director of Product Marketing at IAB Tech Lab. I'm also joined by my colleague Hilary Slatery, who I'll be passing on to present later in the conversation. We're here today to talk about IAB Tech Lab, the 2023 priorities, and to go into more detail on one of our initiatives called the Green Initiative. This webinar forms part of a new series that's being hosted by IAB UK. So we've started a new series called the IAB Tech Lab quarterly update series. Details to join the additional webinars later in the year will be made available on the IAB UK website. So please do continue to follow us along, where we'll continue to provide you relevant updates from IAB Tech Lab. Before I go into kind of the main content of this afternoon of talking about the priorities for 2023, it's always worth just doing a refresher on who IAB Tech Lab are. So for those of you who are not familiar, IAB Tech Lab are a separate organisation from IAB UK. We are the sister company from IAB UK. And while IAB UK are focused on initiatives like education, training, events, research, regulatory and policy work for the local markets, IAB Tech Lab are focused more on producing global technical standards for the programmatic industry. On the screen now, you'll see a snapshot of some of the work and initiatives, or some of the most well-known work and initiatives that we've delivered. So hopefully there are a few of those on the screen, things like ads.txt, OMSDK, VAST, the ad portfolio. Hopefully these are some of our initiatives that you have heard of. We have a lot more work that goes beyond that, and I've added a link to our standards page where you can find all our work in case you are interested in finding out more after the presentation today. Ooh, slides are frozen. One moment. So before I actually kick off into the presentation, it's actually just worth mentioning that IAB Tech Lab are coming to the UK. So this is the first event, at least in many years, that IAB Tech Lab are running in the UK. It's an event that's going to be focused on video. Looking at standards for video across all screens and how we bring more universal standards for video across different screen types, so whichever environments they are being viewed in. The event is being hosted in Bishopsgate on the 27th of April, and I've added a QR code on the screen now for those of you who are interested to register. I will also send around these slides to attendees after, so you'll have a link to sign up there as well. Please do check it out. I think it's going to be a great event. We have a number of great speakers from the UK and other markets involved in the event, and we have a great agenda, which you can find on the website too. So please do sign up yourselves and share with the relevant teams to sign up too. So going into our 2023 objectives and deliverables for this year, it's worth just painting an overview of what our long-term goals are. So in terms of deliverables, we have 5 key areas that we focus our work into. The first one is consumer privacy. We then have addressability and privacy enhancing technologies. And actually, interestingly, we've broken consumer privacy and addressability out into 2 separate topics this year for the first time. Previously, it all fell under one bucket, but I think it's becoming increasingly the work between kind of managing consumer privacy settings versus solving for addressability are becoming kind of big enough in their own area that they almost need their own dedicated work streams. Additionally, we have a focus area on advanced TV. So talking to that topic before about video everywhere. We then are focusing on supply chain and lastly, measurement. Within those, it's worth painting out that our long-term goals in these areas, so for consumer privacy, is to enable scalable and efficient and consistent management of privacy regulations and compliances across the world. For addressability, we want to help audience activation and measurement in the kind of post-cookie and privacy-first internet. For advanced TV, talking to the kind of the subject that I mentioned, our event to be focused on later this year, which is around bringing standards to enable universal addressability, reconciliation, measurement, and interoperability for video across all different video environments, including TV, digital, and broadcast. The next area is around our supply chain, and this is kind of really the crux of where IAB Tech Lab started. So continuing to support the kind of infrastructure and pipelines that our industry is founded on, and working to produce a secure, flexible, and green programmatic supply chain for the digital advertising industry. And last one is measurement. So the goal there is for cross-media, cross-channel, and cross-environment, consistent viewability and verification capabilities. In terms of then what that looks like, so those are the long-term ambitions and what we hope to achieve in those areas, but then breaking it down to what we'll actually be delivering in those areas for 2023. The first one around consumer privacy. So this year, we will continue to develop upon the Global Privacy Platform. The Global Privacy Platform was an initiative that we actually launched last year. So it's an initiative that is ready for industry adoption today. And essentially, it was developed to help companies manage privacy, consumer privacy preferences across the world. Essentially, you know, more and more countries across the world. I think that when I last looked, it was something like 138 countries around the world now have privacy regulations in effect in their markets. And it was kind of becoming quite unwieldy and unsustainable and unmanageable to develop individual privacy frameworks for each country. So what the Global Privacy Platform aims to do is to produce one platform for consumer privacy preferences to be managed globally. And just to mention as well that the Global Privacy Platform does work in conjunction with local level frameworks where they're available, like the IAB Europe Transparency and Consent Framework, but can also be used on its own. I mentioned that the Global Privacy Platform is already available for industry adoption. So please do check it out, given that this topic touches so many companies that I can see are on the call today. But in terms of our efforts for this year, we are continuing to develop the Global Privacy Platform to support more markets where privacy regulations are becoming more pertinent. And in addition to that, we are kind of supporting efforts to drive adoption of this initiative. The next initiative that's worth mentioning as a deliverable for 2023 within this area is the data subject rights. This is a relatively new initiative that we have just announced at the tail end of last year. So details on exactly what this looks like and what the deliverable for this will be is still quite yet to be determined. But essentially, the Data Subject Rights Initiative aims to create some kind of framework that enables consumers to go in, access, modify, and delete the data that is being held on them in the programmatic industry. So again, an important part of privacy regulation is enabling consumers to have that control over their data. So where initiatives like the Global Privacy Platform work on gathering consent, the data subject rights is almost looking at the next stage of when companies do hold data on a consumer, enabling the consumer to have a tool or system or framework to be able to access, modify, and delete it. That's an initiative that we're working on delivering this year. It is still quite early stages. We expect that more details will be available in Q2. Yeah, so please do look out for that. The next one to be aware of is the accountability platform. The accountability platform is hopefully an initiative that many of you have heard of in the past. Essentially, what it aims to do is to build exactly that accountability into our supply chains. Essentially, it looks to produce a framework that helps companies demonstrate that they are and prove that they are respecting the consumer privacy settings that have been selected by consumers. More details for that are expected to follow in Q2, and we're expecting for the initiative to be launched then. It's also worth calling out that IAB Tech Lab work very closely with IAB Europe, and we will continue working with them on the IAB Europe Transparency and Consent Framework in 2023 and going forwards. The next area was around addressability and privacy enhancing technologies. And in terms of key deliverables in this area, the first one worth mentioning is seller-defined audiences. So seller-defined audiences is an initiative that aims to bring a more privacy safe way for publishers and data providers to be able to sell their first-party audiences to advertisers. It was an initiative that was launched last year. So again, an initiative that is ready for industry adoption. Hopefully many of you have heard of seller-defined audiences already. We've done a number of presentations for it at IAB UK. And it's been an initiative that's had a lot of interest in the media. And this year, our focus is to drive adoption of the initiative. And a large part of that, we're focusing on working with the buy side to ensure that they are aware of what seller-defined audiences, and they are, trying to test and showing the demand for it across the supply chain. Another initiative within the addressability space is technical standards for data clean rooms. We actually just launched this last month. So the standards aim to provide best practices to enable interoperability between different data clean room providers. And in addition to the technical standards for data clean rooms, we also have provided some more definitions to help bring more consistency and understanding of what data clean rooms are across the ecosystem, given that there were given that they're a relatively new technology, just wanting to make sure that there's consistency and understanding of what the minimum criteria of what a data clean room should be doing is. Within advanced TV, so I mentioned on the previous slide that we are with advanced TV and the goal for video overall is to bring more universal addressability, reconciliation and measurement across all video environments. And a key initiative in being able to deliver that is what we have named our Open Video Watermark Standard, which essentially, again, details on that are fairly early stages, given that we're just in Q1, but is the key deliverable to help us achieve on those metrics. Measurement is another key area of focus for ours. We work very closely with IAB US in this area. And in terms of investment on our own, we continue to invest into updating the OMID and OMSDK standards in this space to continue supporting evolving areas and markets. The last area of focus is the supply chain and foundational standards area of focus of ours. And within these two key initiatives are the Transparency Center. So the Transparency Center is a hub that is made available for the entire digital advertising ecosystem. And it looks to bring metadata about businesses in a firstly in one system that could be accessed by the entire ecosystem, and makes also the data machine readable so that it can be ingested in business decisions. And what I mean by metadata, this brings information about different IDs that companies have across different systems all into one place. It brings information about ads.txt crawler data into one place. And it also brings information about different compliance programs that companies are adhering to, accessible and readable in one place. And finally, the last initiative to talk about within the Supply Chain Foundations, which is just key deliverable for 2023, is our Green Initiative. And in fact, I'm not going to be the one that talks about it. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Hilary, who runs this initiative, to talk about it in more detail. And the reason that we are having Hilary come in and present on this is that we've heard from IAB UK members that this is a huge area of interest and focus for the UK market. So wanted to make sure that you are all aware. But one thing, and I can see that there is a message in the chat, so just one moment. sorry about that. Apologies, I thought there was a question that had come in. Before I pass over to Hilary for the Green Initiative, one thing that is worth mentioning is around how you can get involved in Tech Lab standards. So as a reminder, IAB UK offer all members complimentary Tech Lab membership. 2 members. For board members, it's general access to IAB Tech Lab. For general members, you get individual Tech Lab membership. But what that means is that you have the ability to access at least one working group for IAB Tech Lab that you may be interested in. I've linked to our working groups page where you can see all the working groups that we have available. And you can get in touch with either myself or your membership representative at IAB UK to make sure that you're getting involved. And I think that's it from me. Hilary, I can hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Right, I'll stop sharing so that you are pulled up on screen.
Lovely. I actually do have some collateral as well. So thank you, those of you who are able to join, particularly your interest in, sorry, let me just go into slideshow. It's not letting me. Particularly your interest in sort of what the Tech Lab is working on with the Green Initiative. And apologies, I can't go into full screen because of my speaker notes. So actually, sorry, I will stop share and let me reshare. So we've gotten quite a lot of wonderful interest around the Green Initiative or the Sustainability Initiative, aka I'm Hilary Slattery. I am the Director of Product for our programmatic products. So I lead up the OpenRTB, the working group that works on the updates to the OpenRTB thing, also ads.txt. And underneath that working group, we have spun up the Sustainability Working Group to do a few things. So Tech Lab in 23 has committed to creating a working group that is open to all Tech Lab members to collaborate on different avenues to lower carbon emissions in this programmatic supply chain. We've committed to collating and republishing programmatic best practices, in addition to the quantified carbon emissions that are wasted by not following that guidance. So this is nothing necessarily net new to the industry. So things that Tech Lab has been saying for years, like make sure you lazy load your page, because not lazy loading pages results in unviewable ads. We're also going to expand into topics that traditionally Tech Lab hasn't waded into, that create waste in the programmatic supply chain, but like have historically lacked official specification. And we're going to iteratively add benchmarks to IAB Tech Lab's tools portal that Tina just mentioned, starting with information already available from our ads.txt, app ads.txt, and sellers.json entries based on input from the working group. I will call out that I have conspicuously not said that Tech Lab is going to be adding an emissions number anywhere in the programmatic supply chain. We know that that number is going to vary by country. It's going to vary by, how those calculations are. Tech Lab is not going to be in that business. What Tech Lab is going to do is say, we know that lowering the amount of ad requests, lowering the size of those bid requests will necessarily result in lower energy consumption, which is good for the planet. So moving on. So as we get into a little bit more detail, I think it is quite important, because I get this question a lot, to call out what we're leaving to our friends and partners in the larger ecosystem. Our friends at AdNet0 and other trade organizations are focused on gaining consensus from the advertising ecosystem as to which factors exactly do need to go into that calculation, into that emissions calculation. Also, methodology and those final emissions calculations are going to be left to businesses and their sustainability vendors like Scope 3, Sadar.io, and Impact Plus, all of whom are in the sustainability working group and are integral parts of that working group. And we know that this essential, complicated, and extremely nuanced task will take time to complete. And because we know that the planet simply doesn't have that time to wait, Tech Lab is going to move forward under the assumption, as I mentioned before, that less signal, especially signal that is created by indirect and duplicative supply paths, means less energy is required to support the programmatic supply chain. That is the focus. Again, what that number is and how it's calculated is not within the Tech Lab remit. We are going to focus on technical best practices to help parties more closely evaluate the carbon impact of adding additional signals and helping them sort of remove signal out of their bid stream. We've broken up the working group into 3 sort of work streams. There's a collateral work stream, so that is the programmatic best practices that I mentioned. In addition to some, working with our sustainability vendors in the working group to sort of quantify the impact of what those are. Then there's this, I'm going to go skip around a bit. Then there's the benchmarking piece of this. So this is how many resellers are listed in the average ads.txt file? How often are these things broken? We're going to add this in. There are quite a few tools that do this in the system, but Tech Lab has the most, what's the word? The thing that crawls literally everything. And most of those other tools only have a sample. So by using Tech Lab's crawler, those benchmarks are going to be, as accurate, the most accurate you can get. And then last but not least, there is a technical work stream. I won't bore you with the PowerPoint, but this will be things like working with ad ops and product leaders to say, what would happen if we moved, deal metadata out of the bid request, and things like basically ways to make ad requests smaller by simply cleaning up ads.txt file or simply removing signal from the bid request. So from a roadmap perspective, collating best practices, this collateral we are working on right now, it is all based on the input from the group, but there will be, it feels like there will be sort of a few different iterations of this. The first will be, 5 or 10 things that you can do today to lower your carbon emissions as a publisher or as a DSP. And then sort of moving forward, there will be more sort of quantified benchmarks and things. The working group is technical. So there are also ideas aimed at lowering the amount of bid requests that happen, basically just nuking them before they start, and technical ways to reduce the size of those bid requests, like removing extraneous signals through things like universal ad IDs. And then things that Tech Lab has just released this month, like a signal to say when an ad slot gets refreshed, in addition to sort of how to think about multiple header bidding integrations. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of what that sort of quantified collateral kind of what we're thinking of. This is a wireframe. This is not complete, but this is kind of what we're thinking. And then last but not least, Tech Lab is a consensus-driven organization, and we need representation from all sides of the ecosystem. I know the UK market is very far along in this and very advanced with this stuff. So the more technical people that lean in, and the more a rising tide lifts all boats. And again, this initiative is more significant than any single publisher, advertiser, ad tech company, or trade group. And the passion and intention are evident to everybody looking. But really, to succeed, we need the entire ecosystem to commit time, expertise, and investment required to do these to have the material impact that we're looking to have. And with that, I think I'm done. Yeah, I will see if there are any questions. Check the QA. No.
Nothing in the QA just yet, but just to open the floor out to anyone who has questions, either on the content that I presented or any of what Hillary presented. We will pause for a minute in case anyone wants to submit anything. And just while we sit in silence, to say that ability to join the working group if you are interested in the one that Hilary mentioned or any of the projects or initiatives that I mentioned before, then please do check out the link on the slides on the working groups page. I can't see any questions come in. So with that, I guess just to say a thank you to everyone for joining. As a reminder, this is a quarterly webinar series, so please do look at the IAB UK events website and sign up for future events. And with that, we can come to an end. Thank you, everyone.